The doctor was exiled to a remote place for saving a rich man and leaving his wife without an inheritance. And when the notary arrived some time later, the train was carrying Leo Gibson through the morning fog. A green stripe of endless expanse flashed by, interspersed with the blue stripe of the river. "Beautiful," said an elderly man, Leo's compartment neighbor, as he poured some brandy into his coffee. "Leo, would you like some coffee with a splash?" "No, thank you, Scott. I don't drink alcohol. It makes my hands shake, and I'm a cardiac surgeon. One inaccurate movement and that's it. No more patient." "So sorry, I'll pass," Leo replied, and began to gaze at the natural landscapes. "I sometimes indulge in a little drink," Scott said with a friendly smile. "It helps relieve stress. I'm a lawyer. I've seen all sorts of things." Scott took a good sip of coffee from his cup and looked at Leo questioningly. "You said you're from the capital, right? Are you on vacation now?" Leo winced as if in pain. "If only you could say it's an exile. It's a long story." "I'm not in a hurry, so spill it. What happened?" said Scott, settling in comfortably, ready to pass the time with someone else's story. Where to begin? Probably with the fact that I was given a choice: either face an investigation and, at best, get a suspended sentence, which isn't much better, or go to a remote place but with a clean reputation and the ability to continue practicing medicine. And who exiled you? Our chief physician made me an offer I couldn't refuse, wanting to hush up an unpleasant story about the disappearance of some controlled painkillers, Leo explained. "So you weren't guilty?" Scott Robinson asked. "Of course not," Leo said indignantly, continuing his story. "That night I was on duty. There were many night calls to the emergency room. It was a hectic night, to say the least. Just keep turning around and urging the nurses on. In general, I was left on duty more often than others because my qualifications were higher and my knowledge more extensive. This, of course, didn't sit well with my fiancée, Carolyn. You can understand her. No groom, no money. The salary, to put it mildly, doesn't match the qualifications, but the chief physician wasn't going to give me any bonuses. So, a patient with a stab wound to the chest came in. A case right up my alley. I got to work on him preparing for surgery when Jacob Miller, a classmate and colleague of mine, came running up, saying I forgot to sign for the received medications in the logbook. I even asked him if everything was in order, as I had indicated that I used only 2 ampules of painkillers. He replied that the number of medications in the report matched, so I signed the document, purely on trust, as we've known each other for years. But then it turned out that 1 ampule was missing. "Well, your buddy counted the last medication," Scott noted. "It's his responsibility." "That's what I told the chief physician," Leo replied, "but I was the accountable person, and the signature was mine too. And Jacob said he saw nothing and knew nothing, just like that. And so, to hush up the whole story, the chief decided to fire me from the clinic and transfer me to a remote, undesirable village. He didn't want any publicity, especially since our hospital is considered exemplary, and it would have cost him his job. But I still can't understand where that cursed ampule went, as everything was in place." "I'll tell you where," squinted Scott, who was beginning to like this young doctor. "But tell me, my dear friend, is this Jacob of yours not holding a grudge against you? Maybe you crossed his path at some point." "Yes, there was a time," Leo admitted. "First, he was jealous that I found studying medicine easier. Then he got offended when I was assigned to work in a capital clinic. His rich father pulled all strings to get him into our department. And again, Jacob didn't like that I was being considered for the head of the department. Well, used to be. And more patients were signing up to see me than him. What are you getting at?" "Oh, how old are you? So naive, like a little child." Scott laughed. "Now tell me, who will be the head of the department now?" "Well, there's no one but Jacob," Leo quickly replied, then slapped his forehead. "Ah, that's it. I didn't think of that. So, you mean to say Jacob set me up to clear the way for himself?" "Maybe so, or perhaps there's another reason. We need to weigh everything carefully," Scott mused. "Let's have a bite to eat, and maybe you'll remember something else. Let's see what my wife packed for us." And she had packed a lot. Magically, the table was filled with roasted chicken, golden potatoes, meat pies, pies with cottage cheese and jam, fragrant smoked sausage, fresh cucumbers, tomatoes, a cake, assorted cookies, and a 3-liter jar of juice. "Wow," exclaimed Leo. "My mouth is watering. It feels like we're celebrating New Year's." "Dig in," Scott laughed. "Eat up. Who knows how it will be with provisions in the village you're going to. This is all a side effect of 30 years of marriage, so go ahead and get married, Leo." "I'd love to get married," he said with his mouth full, "but there's no one left." "How come?" His neighbor was surprised. "My fiancée left me when I was kicked out of the prestigious clinic. She said she couldn't be with a loser, and we decided to get married just 2 weeks ago. You know, it hurts. What's the saying? For better or for worse. Why would you want a wife who runs away like a rabbit at the first sign of trouble? Anyone can be with you in joy and wealth, but try living when there's only bread and water on the table. That's the way, my dear friend. Now, my wife Laura and I have a table full of food, but we had hard times before. We never despaired, though. We helped each other. We raised 3 sons, and raised them to be good people. I think you'll find yourself a good and brave wife, too, one with whom you can go through fire and water together. Just make sure you don't miss her." "Yes, I think you're right. I'm probably worrying for nothing," Leo agreed. After the men had eaten, they continued their earlier conversation in the train's vestibule, where Scott lit his pipe. "Tell me, Leo, did you do anything that might have provoked Jacob's anger?" Scott asked, squinting, and Leo thought he looked a bit like Sherlock Holmes. "Yes, there was something," Leo recalled. "I cured his seriously ill patient." "I don't get your humor," his companion was puzzled. "What's so bad about that?" "I undermined his authority without considering the consequences. I interfered too harshly in the treatment process. You could say I burst in. I saw that the patient was being given medications that could have paralyzed him and scolded the nurse, who was actually not to blame. I never imagined that Jacob was so unprofessional. I thought the nurse had made a mistake and had to apologize to her later. Jacob never forgave me for calling him an incompetent doctor in front of everyone. But should I have stayed silent if he refused to listen to me any other way?" "Did the chief physician resolve your dispute?" Scott asked. "No, he took a neutral stance," Leo replied. "Then I found out something interesting. It turns out that the patient was a very wealthy man. One nurse told me right before I left that Victor Banks, that very rich man, had already made a will in favor of his young wife. While he was in the hospital, she was out at nightclubs, telling everyone she would soon be a rich widow and then fly off to the Maldives. But I completely changed his treatment plan, and the man came out of the vicious circle Jacob had him in, you understand. So I inadvertently ruined the plans of Victor's wife, who often visited the hospital. Guess who she was visiting?" "Her husband, of course," Scott answered. "No, she was visiting Jacob, as my colleagues told me later," Leo said. "Now tell me more about that. What else is there to tell? They say the pair often went to restaurants together," the doctor continued. "That's their business." "Don't you think, my dear friend, that this is a real conspiracy?" Scott asked. "I'd bet that because you saved Victor, ruining the plans of the would-be widow and her accomplice, you were set up, and it was your buddy Jacob who did it. That can't be. It never even crossed my mind, but it's true." Leo was shocked by his compartment neighbor's conclusions. How could someone who took the Hippocratic Oath intentionally extinguish the life of a trusting patient? That's murder. What a scoundrel. "What can you do now?" Scott sighed. "What's done is done, and you can't turn back time. Try to prove yourself in your new place. After all, there are people in the village who deserve a talented doctor like you." "Yes, thank you for your kind words. They mean a lot right now," Leo replied gratefully. After this conversation, it felt like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He was ready for a new life and wasn't afraid of change. Early in the morning, the train made a brief stop at the small Lesnaya station. It was time for Leo to say goodbye to Scott. "Be a man, hang in there!" Scott hugged him like a father. "And remember one thing, there are more good people out there." "Thank you for your kind words," Leo replied with a smile. "I'm lucky to have met you on my journey." "Don't delay, time to disembark. The stop is only 2 minutes," the conductor shouted. Leo got off the train, turned around and waved. A new chapter in his life was beginning. The station was surrounded by greenery and bathed in the first rays of the sun. Leo took a deep breath. The air was sweet and filled with the scent of grasses. He suddenly felt happy. It was as if, like in an old movie, a young, promising doctor arrives in a rural backwater and faces the challenges of life and the twists of fate. "Ah!" Leo shouted at the top of his lungs and walked towards a small building. However, the door was secured with a large padlock. He didn't know where to go next, so he sat on a bench and waited for the ticket office worker to arrive. "Don't wait, they won't come. It's a day off Saturday," a voice called out from somewhere. Leo turned around. Behind him stood a little old man with a thick beard, smoking a hand-rolled cigarette. A cloud of acrid smoke hovered around his head, but the stranger didn't seem to mind. "Wasn't anyone else supposed to get off the train with you?" the old man asked in an amusing manner. "No, just me," Leo replied. "What a pity," the old man said, disappointed. "We were supposed to get a lady doctor from the capital. Was all my work harnessing the horse for nothing?" "Why for nothing? I'll go with you," Leo said. "That's clear enough," the old man sighed. "I won't leave you here. Where are you from? What's your name?" "Leo Gibson." Leo found the old man's way of speaking amusing and smiled. "Was another doctor supposed to arrive?" "Yes, one woman doctor. They say she was kicked out of the capital for some wrongdoing, so they sent her to us. Our women are afraid to go to her now, saying she'll treat them to death, and they won't let the men go either. Maybe it's for the best that she didn't arrive, this doctor, to hell with her, but we don't have a Gibson here." "Now you will," Leo laughed. "By the way, old man, is there a paramedic station in your village?" "Of course there is," the old man replied. "Maria Taylor runs it, a nurse. She's a fine girl, manages everything, milks the cow, and gives shots when needed. Our previous doctor ran away from us, her heels barely touching the ground. Said she couldn't take living here, ran off to the city and got married there. That's what happened. By the way, my name is Thomas Wilson." "I see, I'll be working here with your Maria. What's her last name? And I'm not guilty of any wrongdoing." "Oh," old Thomas was taken aback. "So, you're our new doctor. They said it would be a woman. That's something. Those women were lying again. Their tongues are like brooms. I made a fool of myself in front of you, Leo. Forgive me." "No harm done," Leo said. "Now let's go see your clinic." "Right away," old Thomas said. "Come on, girl, let's go home." And the old horse, lowering her head, easily started pulling the small cart with 2 passengers. Leo had never ridden in a cart before, so he looked around curiously and listened to the forest birds singing. Gradually, drowsiness overcame him, and Leo fell asleep on a pile of fragrant hay. "Whoa!" old Thomas shouted to the horse, and she obediently stopped. "Wake up, Leo! We're here!" Leo opened his eyes and was surprised to find a small whitewashed house with 3 windows in front of him. This was the paramedic station of the small village. Behind the house, there was a small garden. There are 2 entrances. The front one is for the clinic, and at the back, there are doors to the house. That's where you'll live." "Thank you, old man," Leo said gratefully. "Is the store far from here? I need to buy some groceries and water. I'm thirsty." "Do people really buy water?" The old man was astonished. "Do they really have that much money to waste? There's a well right there. Drink as much as you want. The water is clean and the store is across the road." "And how do I get into the building?" Leo asked. "The key is hanging on the doorframe," said old Thomas, "and the key to your house too. I live over there on that hill. If you need anything, just come by." "All right," said Leo, and went first to the house to put away his things. The living quarters for the doctor were small. It consisted of 1 room and a tiny kitchen with simple furniture. It had just enough to live comfortably and nothing unnecessary. That's how people lived in the village. The news that a young doctor from the capital had arrived spread through the village like wildfire. Within half an hour, local residents began to approach the paramedic station. Some brought potatoes, others homemade sausage, milk with cream, baked goods or baskets of eggs. Everyone wanted to meet the new doctor, who would now be responsible for their health and lives. "Oh, so young," came voices from the crowd gathered behind the fence of the paramedic station, watching the new doctor wash his hands from a wash basin that stood outside. "Hello?" A senior woman stepped forward from the group of villagers. "We came to greet the new person. My name is Elizabeth Watts, and yours?" Leo wiped his hands with a towel and looked in surprise at the gathered crowd. "Good afternoon. My name is Leo Gibson. I'm a cardiac surgeon." I've been sent here from the capital to help you. Please, come in. Be my guests." The women smiled and were pleased with the warm welcome. They came in and started looking around the dwelling. Leo watched in amazement as these people, without saying a word to each other, began to get busy. Some started washing the windows, others swept and mopped the floors. A third group lit the stove and started cooking soup right in a cast-iron pot, putting it into the stove with a long-handled tool, and the house filled with such an aroma that Leo's mouth watered, and the soup was so delicious that no restaurant could compare. By evening, everyone had left, leaving Leo alone. Now he could think, yes, it's going to be tough. Thoughts swirled in his head. I have so much to learn. I don't even know how to light a stove, and why would I need it in May? But how will I cook food? I'll have to buy an electric stove. And in winter? Oh well, I'll learn. Leo's thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock at the door. "Come in, it's open," he said. The door opened and a pretty girl of about 25 entered, carrying a basket of provisions. "Good evening, Leo. I'm Maria, the nurse. Everyone here knows me." Leo immediately remembered old Thomas's words and smiled. "Maria, nice to meet you. Looks like we'll be working together. Come in, I've just figured out how to use the kettle." Over coffee and conversation, time flew by, and it had long since grown dark outside. "Well, I should go," Maria said. "I've talked your ear off. See you on Monday. Let me walk you home. It's quite dark out. Who would harm me? Everyone here is friendly." Maria laughed. "This isn't the city." Leo wanted to take a walk, so he insisted on walking her home. The night was warm, and the air smelled of fresh leaves. He felt as if he had wandered into some fairy tale world or even a dream. Leo noticed that Maria looked at him with a certain fondness, indicating her interest. However, he couldn't reciprocate her feelings just yet, as his heart still ached from his fiancée's betrayal. To Maria, the new doctor seemed like a dream come true, the best match she could hope for. Additionally, he was a handsome, well-educated young man, which meant a lot. She heard the villagers speak respectfully of Leo, which filled her with pride. She wanted to be part of that respect, so she devised a simple plan to win over the new doctor and marry him as soon as possible. After escorting Maria home, Leo stood for a while by the river that flowed nearby. The village was asleep, with only one house showing a light, old Thomas's insomnia keeping him up. Monday morning brought Leo back to reality. Even before sunrise, the village roosters woke him up. As he prepared for his first day of work, he heard some murmuring outside. It turned out that a line had already formed at the clinic, serving as a gathering place for gossiping neighbors. When the villagers saw the doctor in his formal suit, they fell silent out of respect, all eyes fixed on the newcomer. "Good morning," Leo greeted everyone. "Hey, please come in one at a time. I'll see all of you." "Hello," came the voices from all around. But 10 minutes later, a scuffle broke out in the crowd as someone tried to cut the line. Leo had to come out himself and restore order, as no one was listening to Maria. The amount of work ahead was overwhelming. The vaccination campaign for adolescents was extremely neglected, and most of the villagers hadn't had a chest X-ray in years. Additionally, regular health checkups hadn't been conducted for a long time. What was the previous doctor doing? Leo fumed. Why is everything in such a dismal state? Maria, you have to ensure that all the data is entered into the electronic system. That way, regional doctors can access patients' medical histories. Do you understand? Otherwise, I'll have to reprimand you. I understand, Leo, Maria smiled. You scolded me as if we've been married for 10 years. Sorry about that, Leo apologized. For some reason, some doctors think that just because they work in a village, they can be negligent with their duties and patients, not keeping up with the times. I know many renowned and experienced doctors who continue to learn, taking various courses and studying new scientific achievements. But don't rural residents deserve quality healthcare just as much as those in the city? An elderly woman who was being examined at that moment looked at the new specialist with admiration, hanging on his every word. You know, she said to those in the queue when she came out of the office, the new doctor truly cares about us simple folk. He worries with all his heart, and he's so young, yet so competent. Just look at how he was setting Maria straight, asking why this and that isn't done right. And among the villagers, the opinion solidified. that Leo Gibson was the best doctor in the world and had been sent here for speaking the truth. The week flew by unnoticed. Leo was fully immersed in his work, not realizing how morning turned into evening. The queues became shorter, and there were fewer house calls. It was time to plant the gardens, so people's ailments took a back seat. One evening, late already, someone knocked timidly at his door. Who could be coming in such a downpour? Leo thought irritably. But then he remembered that there wasn't another doctor for 20 kilometers around, took a deep breath, and composed himself. This was his profession, after all. He had chosen it. Leo opened the door. In front of him stood a stranger, soaked to the skin. The girl was sobbing, and it was hard to tell if she was crying or if the rain was just streaming down her face and onto the rug that Elizabeth Watts had lovingly knitted and gifted him. The guest stood on the threshold in silence. The host of the house was silent too. "I'm sorry to bother you at this hour," she began with a choked voice, "but it's a matter of life and death." Leo realized that she was indeed crying and offered her to come in. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Nancy Gilbert," the guest replied. "I came here discreetly because our folks can be quite gossipy, and I've had enough shame," Nancy cried again, and Leo handed her a handkerchief, which she nervously crumpled in her hands. Leo understood that the matter was indeed serious. "We're not in the office, so let's communicate. Informally, like friends?" "Okay," Leo suggested. "Sure," Nancy agreed, shivering. Leo handed her his bathrobe. "I'll go to the kitchen to make coffee, and you change, or you'll catch a cold. It's chilly inside, and I didn't light the stove today." While he was bustling in the kitchen, Nancy folded her wet clothes and put on the bathrobe, which of course was too big for her. She looked comical in Leo's attire, and he couldn't help but smile. "All right, come on in. There's some cookies, chocolates, and meat pies that Elizabeth baked. Then we'll talk, okay?" Nancy nodded, smiling, revealing a row of pearly teeth. The smile suited her well. Leo couldn't help but admire her. As they had coffee, he cautiously broached the subject. "Do you work anywhere?" "Yes, I work as a dairy maid on a farm, but I actually studied to be a veterinarian. I love animals. I'm waiting for our veterinarian to retire so they'll hire me in his place." "Well, everything seems to be going well, so why are you crying?" "The thing is, the farmer's son, whom I'm currently working for, deceived me," Nancy said, lowering her head. "He promised to marry me, but when I told him I was pregnant, he told me to get rid of the baby and keep quiet. He has no intention of helping with the child or acknowledging it as his own." "Well, termination of pregnancy isn't my expertise," Leo said dryly. "I'm not planning on getting rid of the baby," Nancy said. "I just have no one else to ask for help, and you seem to be someone already respected here. Maybe you could talk to Robert Meyer, the father of my child. Perhaps he'll listen to you and change his mind. My mother is sick, so I'm working in her place to make ends meet. But if the baby comes, I'll have to leave the farm. Compensation for 3 people won't be enough. And what should I do? I don't even know how I got caught up with that scoundrel, as if I was in a fog. He has always been repulsive to me, but suddenly, as if I lost my will, he seemed perfect." "It seems like some sort of intoxication," Leo said thoughtfully. "We should definitely look into that." "Wait, what about your mother?" he asked. "She has a weak heart," Nancy replied. "Constant dizziness, weakness. In the city, she was hospitalized, but the doctors said they couldn't help her. They prescribed some pills for severe palpitations, discharged her, and didn't grant her disability. She can't work even if she lies down and dies." "All right, tomorrow morning bring your mother to me for an appointment. We'll do an ECG, examine her, and send the tests to the city," Leo suggested. "And as for supporting the child, I might help you if the father doesn't come to his senses. You need to fight for your happiness, you know?" "Yes," Nancy smiled. "I understand, thank you. I feel a bit relieved now." The rain stopped and she left, asking not to be escorted to avoid gossip. Leo, after clearing the table, went to bed. He needed to gather strength. A difficult day was ahead. Nancy brought her mother. Anna Gilbert was pale and could barely walk. Since there was no one else around in the morning, Leo was able to thoroughly examine the patient and conduct the tests available to him. Upon finding out about the treatment Nancy's mother had been receiving, He was outraged. "Well, this regimen is completely unsuitable for you, Anna. No wonder you've been feeling so poorly. These medications seem to have been prescribed haphazardly, without confirmation from the necessary tests. Let's do the following. Stop all the medications and spend a week on bed rest. I'll prescribe you some drops. They're inexpensive. You'll take them in the meantime. And when the results come in, I'll prescribe something completely different for you. It's not all that bad as it turns out. Let's see, maybe you'll be able to go back to work soon. It's just the consequences of age-related changes, and your body wasn't ready for it, so it reacted so strongly." The mother and daughter exchanged glances, tears in their eyes. It was evident how they had been suffering all this time, all because of some medical negligence that almost led to the grave of a practically healthy woman. "Doctor, being near you makes me feel better somehow," exclaimed Anna, tears streaming down her face. "I was really prepared to die," she added. Glancing at her mother, Nancy spoke up. She hadn't yet mentioned that she was pregnant, fearing it might cause her mother to have a heart attack. Leo understood this and decided to help. "So here's the deal," he announced. "In about 6 months you can confidently go back to work as a dairymaid or calf handler, and then it'll be time to babysit your grandchild." "What?" Anna's eyes widened in surprise. "Mum, I'm pregnant with Robert's child and he doesn't want the baby," Nancy confessed, lowering her head. Her mother's face furrowed but then suddenly brightened. "Well, to hell with him. I'll soon be back on my feet, and somehow we'll raise that grandchild, all thanks to our golden boy, Leo. Oh, if only your father were alive, he'd give that scoundrel a piece of his mind," Anna exclaimed, pointing into the distance. She then walked away without limping, as if a new life had been breathed into her. "This is what moral support means," Leo said. "It's important for patients." "I don't know how to thank you," Nancy shook Leo's hand. "I was so afraid for my mom, and I was also afraid she'd find out about my situation. And it's shameful. I'm not married. But now, since she's feeling so much better, I don't care about anything. Oh, it's so great that you came to us." Overwhelmed with emotions, Nancy hugged Leo tightly, so tightly that he felt her heart beating against his chest. Something fleeting and tender touched his soul, as if he had fallen in love. And even though this girl was nothing like his refined ex-fiancée, didn't play the piano, and didn't wear beautiful clothes, her bright soul shone through it all, expecting nothing in return. As Nancy left, Leo watched her for a long time. He couldn't understand Robert. How could he hurt such an angel? Farmer Robert Meyer's house was like a nobleman's estate. When Leo entered the courtyard, he saw that, in addition to the owner's family, there was also some staff. Women and men were bustling around, either carrying things or cleaning. Sneaky bastard, Leo thought. Anna was telling the truth. Sitting on the steps of the house was a young, chubby man with bushy blonde hair and eyebrows to match. His small eyes keenly watched the workers. He looked more like a spiteful piglet. "Good day, are you Robert Meyer?" Leo asked. "And good health to you too, Doctor." Robert squinted his eyes, grumbling. "What brings you here? We don't have any patients." "I'm here about the situation with Nancy. She said she's pregnant with your child. She wants to keep the baby, but apparently you're against it. What happened? Can't you handle having a child of your own?" "That's none of your business, Doctor." Robert stood up to his full height, revealing a sizable beer belly. "How is it not my business when I'll have to deal with her pregnancy as the only doctor in the area? So, do you deny paternity?" Leo no longer wanted to mince words with this shameless rascal. "Forget it," Robert chuckled. "Any girl would be thrilled to marry me, with the kind of money our family has. It's a dream for them." "We're not discussing marriage here, we're talking about responsibility for the child," Leo retorted. "Do you acknowledge paternity?" "No, I've already said everything. Whoever Nancy complains to should take care of her now." "Understood," Leo said, turned around and left. He realized there was nothing more to discuss with this man. Lunchtime was over, and he hurried to the medical station. Today was Children's Day, so mothers with their babies had gathered in the corridor. Maria was already hard at work, weighing, measuring height, and giving mothers pamphlets on preventive vaccinations. "Well done, Maria, you're doing a great job." Leo praised the nurse, causing her cheeks to flush crimson. She coyly looked at the doctor and smiled at him as if she had seen something beautiful. The mothers in line started gossiping. This was exactly what Maria needed, to spread rumors that the new doctor from the city and the local nurse were not just colleagues. Leo, however, didn't notice the intrigue and romantic schemes carefully laid out by the girl. He was fully immersed in his work. In the evening, when he had lit the stove and was cooking soup according to Elizabeth's recipe, Nancy came to visit him. "Sorry for barging in without knocking. What's wrong? Is it about your mum?" Leo asked with concern. "I got fired," Nancy sobbed. "I went to the farm today and Robert told me neither I nor my mum should set foot in their barn. Look, they gave me my final paycheck and work record. How are we going to live now?" "You'll be fine. Don't cry. It's not good for you." Leo began to reassure her. "Everything will be okay. That scoundrel Robert won't get the satisfaction of seeing you humiliated. I've been needing a caretaker and a cleaner for a while now, and that's 2 positions. I think it'll be enough for you and Anna. I'll get you both registered tomorrow. And since your mum can't work for now, I'll write her a sick leave. You'll take care of her. And I'll help too, of course. Maria is overwhelmed with work. Being a nurse is demanding." Nancy stopped crying, wiped away her tears, and smiled radiantly. "Really, you'll help us? Will everything be all right for us?" "And of course," it confirmed Leo. "Don't forget to bring your mum for an appointment." "Absolutely," Nancy shouted, running out of the room. She wanted to share the good news with her mother as soon as possible. It felt like wings had sprouted behind her. That's how, with just words of support and a little help, you can uplift a fallen person. Leo knew this well because he was a good person, unlike Robert, who, upon learning that Leo had helped Nancy's family, harbored resentment towards him. The treatment Leo prescribed for Nancy's mother, according to the research, was working wonders. 2 months later, she was able to return from sick leave and work at the medical station alongside her daughter. As Nancy's belly grew, Maria's hopes of snaring the village's most eligible bachelor dwindled by the day. Maria saw from the sidelines how tenderly Leo looked at Nancy, and his feelings were mutual. Anna surrounded the doctor with gratitude and care simply because she liked him. Soon everyone in the village knew that Nancy was pregnant, but they didn't know who the father was. Those in the know kept silent like gorillas, so the village women speculated with interest about who this mysterious father could be. "Nancy is a decent girl," reasoned one of them, standing in the grocery store. "She wouldn't get involved with just anyone." "Then why isn't she married?" another asked. "Is the doctor to blame then?" inquired a grey-haired old lady, sparking the crowd's anger. "Think before you speak, Janet. The doctor is a good guy. He wouldn't disgrace the girl." "And use your chicken brain. Nancy's been pregnant for a while now, and Leo only arrived here 3 months ago," explained the forester's wife. "That's true," said Janet. "I almost caused trouble for the guy for nothing. He's definitely married. I'm telling you, he's married." Everyone fell silent. Each of those present had a husband or son-in-law. The forester's wife broke the silence. "You, scatterbrain, what are you on about? You're casting doubts on us again. Nancy won't just join any family. Someone must have tricked her. If I find out who, I'll smash all his windows. It's become a trend to bully orphans. Her father was my Raymond's first friend. We need to help the girl." Next day, the villagers came to Nancy's and brought whatever they could. Some brought a crib that had seen all their children grow up. Others brought a feeding chair, a children's table, and baby clothes. They even brought a tricycle and a soccer ball, which deeply touched Anna. It turned into a full-blown celebration with songs and gatherings that lasted until late at night. Autumn crept in unnoticed. While harvesting carrots in the garden, Nancy started having contractions. She was rushed to the nearby maternity hospital. Nancy gave birth to a baby boy, whom she named after her father, Brian. "Dad, take your little son," said the midwife when she brought the baby out for discharge. "He's a spitting image of his dad, your little one. Looks just like him, like 2 peas in a pod." Leo looked at Anna, who blushed like a beetroot. They came to pick up Nancy together, and here he was mistaken for the baby's father. "Thank you," said Leo, and reached out to take the crying bundle. Little Brian immediately showed with his loud cries that he was no pushover. And only when Nancy, receiving the doctor's discharge, took her son in her arms, did he calm down. "What a voice," Leo smiled. "He'll probably be an opera singer." Anna couldn't take her eyes off her grandson the whole way. She took the baby from Nancy, who was still weak, and held the precious bundle close to her heart, soothing him with a soft song. "I have a proposal for you," Nancy said to Leo, cautiously navigating the bumps in the road. "Let's get married. I suggest this because we like each other, right? And most importantly, it's for Brian's well-being. Let him have what everyone else has." "But he's not your child," Nancy said, surprised. "Won't you regret it later? I've liked you for a long time, but I don't want to ruin your life." "No one said you'd ruin my life," Leo insisted. "So do you agree?" "I agree," Nancy said shortly. From behind, Anna's sobs could be heard. After months of worrying for her daughter, it was finally over. She was happy, and maybe even happier than the future couple. They got married quickly. And now in the village, no one doubted that Brian was Leo's son. He was just born prematurely. Such rumors circulated among the rural population. The newlyweds themselves neither denied nor confirmed anything. They just smiled and enjoyed their happiness. In the evening, in honor of the birth of the new family, everyone was invited. Tables were set up right in the mown meadow. The warm Indian summer still allowed celebrations until morning. Only 2 people didn't come to the festivities. Maria and Robert. Envy clouded their eyes at others' happiness. "What's wrong, Maria?" drunken Robert said as he passed by Maria's house. "Didn't your shining hawk marry you? My Nancy needed him, apparently. And the little boy is mine too. Look how fast they are. Nobody just leaves Robert Meyer like that." "Why didn't you marry Nancy then if she got pregnant with you?" Maria suddenly yelled. "Then I would have had a chance with Leo. You coward, Robert!" "And you stop scolding me, idiot," Robert snapped. "I have a plan for revenge. Want to help? Welcome." And Robert, falling into the grass face down, started snoring. And 3 days later, there was an inspection from the prosecutor's office at the medical center. Leo was shocked when he found out what he was accused of. "We received a signal that you, Leo, are taking bribes from patients," said the investigator. "I'll ask you to open the safe." Maria obediently handed over the keys. When Leo opened the safe, he found a stack of money. Maria rejoiced secretly because it was she who, at Robert's request, had planted them there, carefully wiping her fingerprints. All the bills were marked with the word bribe, which was revealed when a special lamp was directed at the banknote. "This isn't mine." Leo was in deep shock. "Whose is it then?" asked the investigator. "You're responsible for the safe, aren't you? Besides, we know about your history with missing painkillers. That's why you were sent here, right?" "What do you say? I didn't take anything there either," Leo insisted. Everyone says that," said the investigator. "Well, shall we proceed with the arrest?" Leo was taken to the city and thrown into prison. Nancy visited him with parcels and said that nobody in the village believed in his guilt. People raised money for a lawyer, but even he couldn't help. The court found Leo guilty of bribery, taking into account the previous incident with the disappearance of prohibited drugs. In the end, he was sentenced to 4 years. It all happened so quickly that they didn't even have time to properly say goodbye. Leo was transferred thousands of kilometers away from the village, leaving Nancy grieving with her mother and the baby in her arms. The general regime colony was considered exemplary, but it was only on paper. When Leo entered the cell, he immediately understood serving his sentence normally wouldn't be easy. As soon as the iron door closed behind him, a small, unpleasant-looking inmate with a scarred face and a torn ear jumped up to Leo. "Who's this little birdie that flew in?" he chuckled, showing his toothless mouth. Leo silently put his things on the free bunk and sat down gloomily, staring into space. "Didn't they teach you to greet people?" Another inmate, who was sitting at a table and cleaning something, said loudly. "Hello," said Leo, "and sorry, I'm very tired. The journey was long." "There are rules that must not be broken, young man," said the elderly man in an expensive tracksuit, which set him apart from the other inmates. When he spoke, everyone fell silent. "I don't know the rules yet," Leo replied, "and I'll have to learn." "Unfortunately, you should have learned earlier, but now it's too late. Don't be offended. The locals are upset," said the man in the tracksuit. "Then I'll start over. My name is Leo, and yours?" he naively asked. Laughter erupted in the cell, and someone groaned in the corner. "Asking such questions to newcomers here is inappropriate," the man replied calmly. At that moment, the doctor realized that this man was the leader in the colony, so he preferred to remain silent. "We'll teach him quickly. Back off, will you? Let me rest. I haven't been here long, so I don't know anything," said Leo. Sleep quickly overcame him, and when he woke up, he found that all his belongings had been cut up and scattered in a secluded spot. "Now go and fetch your stuff," another red-haired man with obvious signs of strabismus, hopping around like a monkey, said to him. Everyone laughed. "Whoever threw my things there should be the one to get them," Leo said, inwardly trembling with fear, but not showing it on his face. "Let's show him!" The toothless one screamed hysterically. Leo managed to grab a spoon from the table. The military training he underwent in university made itself known. With a swift movement, he threw the red-haired man over his hip, and he struck the toothless one under the chin so hard that he fell by the secluded spot. Leo grabbed the third, a big and unwieldy fellow who seemed to be the authorities' guard, from behind by the throat, and pressed the spoon handle against him. "Hey, suit guy, call off your lackeys," Leo shouted. "I'm a surgeon and I'll butcher this hog, so you'll be grilling kebabs and begging for extras." "All right, pour the coffee for me and the doctor," the leader said calmly. "We'll get acquainted." "Hey, John," the toothless one squealed. "He needs to be put in his place for his insolence. He'll be our servant." "I'll put you in your place," the elder replied quietly, narrowing his eyes like a snake. The toothless one whimpered and scurried to his bunk while another inmate poured coffee. Suddenly, sausage and cheese appeared on the table, along with chocolate candies and a fruit roll. "Sit down, doctor, we're going to get acquainted," said the authority figure, in a tone that brooked no objections. Leo released the guard from whose neck a trickle of blood was flowing and sat down next to John. There was murmuring in the cell, but John raised his hand and everyone fell silent. "Well, Leo, everyone calls me John. Bruce, give him your bunk. The surgeon will now sleep opposite me." A man with a stony face silently gathered his belongings, rolled up his mattress, and moved to Leo's spot. "Your things will be compensated by my guys," John said. "We haven't had any doctors here before. Tell me, how did you end up here?" And Leo told them everything about his life. People with counts of robberies, murders, listened to him with open mouths. And in the evening, John suddenly felt unwell. Clutching his heart, he fell off the bench. Leo reacted quickly, as there was no cardiologist for dozens of kilometers, so treating the authority figure was entrusted to him. By the second day, John felt better. Since then, Leo's life in prison had become luxurious. By prison standards, he became his right hand. Meanwhile, Nancy waited and hoped for the best. Anna took on 2 jobs at once, being both a nursemaid and the breadwinner for their family. She thanked fate for getting back on her feet in time and cursed the farmer's son for what he had done with Maria. Maria, on the other hand, resigned and fled to the city, hiding from public anger. But misfortune never comes alone. Little Brian fell ill. His heart turned out to be too weak. "Your son needs surgery, not now but in the near future," said the pediatric cardiologist, "and not every specialist will take on the case." "What are we to do?" Nancy pleaded. "I'll prescribe Brian supportive therapy, but the medications will be expensive," the doctor said. When Nancy learned the cost of the medications, she burst into tears. She had never seen so much money before. "Oh my God," Anna exclaimed, waving her hands when her daughter told her what the doctor had said. "And there's no one to help us, and Leo is in prison." And in the evening, a call came from the colony. "With deep regret, we inform you, Nancy, that your husband, Leo, died at the logging site. He was crushed to death by a log. Please accept our condolences," they said on the other end of the line, and hung up. Nancy's world crumbled beneath her feet. The light dimmed in her eyes. She had barely been a wife before becoming a widow. Anna grieved especially deeply. Leo was like a son to her. The news of Nancy's son being seriously ill and her husband dying in prison even reached Robert Meyer. One night, there was a knock at Nancy's door. Standing there was Robert. "Listen, Nancy, I'm not heartless either," he said. "I know my grandson is sick. My father scolds me, saying the grandson is ill. There's no reason for him to live in hunger. Come to my house as my mistress, then I'll acknowledge Brian and I'll help with his treatment. Why are you silent? Think about it. Give me an answer tomorrow. If you live with me, there will be money for medications. If not, Well, sorry then. Robert left and Nancy cried all night. She didn't want anything to do with the hated farmer's son, but the child's life was worth more. Sweetheart, don't do it. People will help us. We'll cure Brian, pleaded her mother. We can't get enough on our own and Robert is rich. Let him help treat his grandson, said Nancy. Nothing is given for free. I'm sorry, Mom, but I'll agree. We can't bring Leo back anyway, so at least I'll save our son. Anna stayed silent. Only one person didn't believe in Leo's death, and that was Maria. She filed a request on Nancy's behalf and found out that it wasn't him who died, but his namesake. A cunning plan ripened in the envious woman's mind. She wrote a letter to Leo, vividly describing how his beloved had left to live with Robert, omitting any mention of their son's illness. Why are you so down? John asked Leo, who held the fateful letter in his hands. I need to go home, he replied shortly, and showed John the letter from Maria. Well, if you must, you must, John replied. In 3 days, there'll be an escape. You can go with them, and I'll cover for you. What if we get caught? They'll send you back to my cell. I'll arrange it, Jake said. Leo couldn't sleep thinking about how Nancy could treat him like that. The inmates escaped at night. John had planned it all. A freight train loaded with food arrived on schedule. Someone was already waiting for them and helped them climb into a wagon equipped for 4 people. How much it cost John remained only a guess, but 3 days later the runaway inmates, led by Leo, were back in his village. Let's rob the store, Richard suggested. We'll just knock out the cashier. Otherwise, she might identify us. We're not going to hurt anyone or rob anything, Leo objected. Go your own way, I've come home. But the inmates didn't listen to him. Old habits spoke in them. Breaking into the store during lunchtime, they scared the cashier, Jessica, to death, but didn't manage to harm her. Run, Leo shouted, and he himself rushed at the thugs. He managed to disarm 2 of them, but the third snuck up behind and struck him on the head. If it hadn't been for the men who arrived just in time, led by Jessica, Leo would have perished. Look, Leo's alive, see? People cried around. Nancy ran to the cries but didn't get to see her beloved. One thing warmed her heart: Leo was alive. But she felt ashamed before him and before the people. However, the thought of her sick child prevented her from leaving Robert. As John had said, Leo was returned to the prison to the same cell. But not only was he not given extra time for the escape, but a year later he was released on parole for good behavior. Go, live there for me, John said in farewell. Leo was finally free and breathed the fresh summer air. When he returned, the first thing he did was go to the Meyer family. He saw Robert from afar. Why are you here? Don't come near us. We're leaving here. I'm selling the farm. How can you leave? You have my wife and son. Leo pushed Robert away and headed for the house. Nancy, let's go home. You're not to blame. When Nancy saw Leo, she grabbed her son and ran out of the house barefoot. He hugged them, then turned around and punched Robert right in the face. He fell and couldn't get up for a long time, and Anna was already running towards them. Leo's back! Oh, Nancy was a hostage to this scoundrel. Brian is sick. His heart is weak. Leo looked at the emaciated Nancy. She stood there crying. I wasn't his wife. I lived like a servant. I didn't betray you. I believe you, Leo said. Let's go home. In the evening, the entire village gathered at Nancy's house. People came, bringing treats, congratulating the doctor on his return. The whole village celebrated Leo's arrival at the party. And a week later, the notary arrived. Leo, I've come to transfer the Meyer family's former farm into your management. How come? Leo didn't understand. It's being gifted to you. By whom? Victor Banks. Remember him? You saved him in the capital when you were working at the clinic. By the way, Jacob, who set you up with the missing drugs, is serving time for illegal drug trafficking, and your early release from prison was orchestrated by the same Victor. So are you taking over the farm? Yes, of course, Leo smiled. And within 6 months, his enterprise became one of the most profitable in the region. The workers received decent wages. Nancy became the chief veterinarian, while Anna skillfully managed the entire household. Brian was operated on in the best clinic in the capital, and he ran around with all the other kids, no longer struggling to breathe. Leo ensured that a fully equipped hospital with maternity services was built in the village, becoming a hero to all the women while the elderly people always stood guard over the well-being of his family. Robert and Maria, who returned from the city, were shamefully expelled from the village. Moreover, Robert was convicted of using banned substances. Nancy was always by Leo's side. One day she unexpectedly felt dizzy. Leo barely managed to catch her and was genuinely scared. "We need to go to the hospital urgently. It will pass, don't worry." "When?" Leo asked, frightened. "In 9 months," Nancy whispered in his ear. "We'll have another little one." And time for Leo began a new countdown.
If you enjoyed the story, please support it with a like and a comment. All the best to you.